If I had to start from $0 and rebuild my $100,000 per month transactional funding business without all of the mistakes, this video is exactly what I'd do. And none of this requires any money or experience or any of that stuff. You've convinced yourself you don't have what it takes or made excuses on why you haven't gotten where you want to be, but the reality is you just lack strategy. So over the next 20 minutes, I'm going to give it to you, but not just the good stuff. Let's start with where I went wrong so that you can avoid that stuff first, and then we'll work our way up from there. These are the mistakes I made at the beginning. This is what you have to avoid when you're starting off if you want to build a successful transactional funding business with less mistakes, not end up how I did. And the first thing is simply not understanding how this stuff works. It's as simple as that. When I was getting started, I heard people talking about, oh, I'm gonna fund EMD, or I do this double close thing, or I move money around, or whatever. So I heard them talking about it, but I didn't know what they actually meant. Like, what does that actually look like? How does that work? How can I get involved? It's one thing to know a concept, it's another to become an expert in that concept. And when I finally did that, as we'll talk about, that's what changed everything for me. And so that was the first mistake I made, was simply not taking the time to understand how this works and actually just like diving in and listening to the people that were running these businesses. Because I could talk about this with tons of different businesses. When you're looking at people that are wholesaling or buying rentals or whatever, like, you can't just take stuff at face value. People say everything's all fine and dandy. Welcome to the world. Everyone's always going to try and make things look good. The question is, what does it actually look like behind the scenes? Are they growing month over month? Are they happy? What does their time look like? That's how you can make a decision on things. And that's the same thing, I always say I encourage people to do that with the stuff I post and anybody else so that you can understand that. But once you've gotten past that, then it's the logical, like, okay, I definitely want what this person has, right? Whatever that thing is. And so I'm going to put in the work instead of just going and trying to, jump in head first and chase after that. And so again, first mistake, learning how this stuff works is crucial. If you skip that, you are screwed. The second thing, after you've learned how this stuff works, or at least gotten started on that road, the second mistake I made was just not talking about it. It's literally that simple. I could point out a timeline over the past 2 years of my life, every single time that I transition, how I'm speaking, what I'm speaking about, everything that I do, everything that I see, and the money that I make immediately follows. When I first started talking about funding EMD, I went to a meetup. This was in May 2023. I went to a meetup and I had spent the past week or 2 weeks or whatever just deep diving on funding EMD. And I went to a meetup and somebody asked and I said, I fund earnest money deposits. That's one of the things that I do. I fund earnest money deposits for people. Here's how it looks if I was to do that for you. I just started talking about it. And I kid you not, I had a conversation about funding my next deal with those people from the meetup the next day because I started talking about it. And if I fast forward from there, I didn't do double closes for a while because I didn't know how they worked. And as I learned how they worked, I talked about it, deals started coming in. Then I got into seller carrybacks, my favorite thing to do now. I started talking about it and they came in. But if you don't talk about it, or here's the dagger, if you talk about a million different things, then you will not see and not reap the benefits of those things. So if you want to build this business up right now, you got to pick which thing you're going to focus on. And if I was rebuilding my business right now, I would be talking all about funding seller carrybacks. That's what I'm doing now, right? And you can skip that line and get basically to where I'm at without the years of other things that I've done and move to the thing with the highest profit margins, the biggest solutions, and the most need right now. But it all starts with actually just talking about it. The third thing that I would avoid, that I definitely screwed myself with a little bit at the beginning, and a lot of you guys do too, is fishing in the same pond. Everybody's talking to the same people. There are brokers, there are transaction coordinators, there are title companies, there are all of these people nationwide, other real estate groups. But if you just sit in one group, you go to one local meetup, you just talk to one friend, you're never gonna find anything. You have to avoid talking to the same people. The second you get outside of that, you will realize the world of real estate investing is a massive space. And if you just stay in one spot, you're not gonna get very far. The next mistake that I made early on was looking into it on the side and then wondering why nothing happened, right? This kind of goes back to not talking about it. It's like, if you want something to be a business, the reason why side hustles have a negative connotation is because people do them on the side and then they never really pick up, and then they decide, oh, it didn't work. There's nothing happening. It's because you didn't put in the effort. You had to put in the effort first. I spent months, in fact, about 6 months, I did transactional funding on the side. I was funding EMD on the side, and it was like, it wasn't really growing. It was just kind of over there, right? And I was spending all of my time wholesaling. And the month that I shifted, which we'll talk about in a second, that crazy month, but the month that I shifted to focusing on this stuff, that means I was talking about it more, people were hearing about it from me, and I wasn't looking at it as a side hustle, but it went from how can I just get a deal here and there to how can I increase my deal flow? How can I establish my presence and my credibility? When I did that, everything changed. And so if I was restarting my business, the first thing that I would do is avoid those mistakes. And instead, I would talk more about what I'm doing. I would become an expert in the space, and I would treat it like an actual gig that is full-time focused on marketing, credibility, and growth. The second mistake that I would completely avoid is low leverage activities. Let me tell you a story. January of 2024. What a beautiful month that was. I remember it very clearly. In January 2024, I finally started trying to ramp up my funding activity. And the goal that I set for myself, a very lofty goal, I had actually set it a few months earlier, was I want to fund a deal for every day of the month. That was my goal. Fund a deal every day of the month. In my head, I was like, I will be the richest human being on planet Earth if I can fund a deal every day of the month. And so that's what I set out to do. I was reaching out to people constantly. I was trying to get referrals. I was pulling all the people that I was already funding and lowering my rates, whatever I could do to just get as many deals as possible. And I was more or less, in a business day sense, I guess, able to achieve that. I funded about 25 deals in the month of January. Now, let me put some emphasis on a word for you. Another classic, especially on social media. I funded 25 deals. I did not close 25 deals. I funded them. You're going to hear people say, oh, I'm projected to make this and whatever. Bro, don't listen to that crap until they have a number on what they actually made. Projections are stupid. I can tell you what I projected to make in January 2024, and I can tell you what ended up happening. I thought that in January 2024, I would have my first $25,000 month in my life. Psycho goal. I was like, that would be the craziest thing ever. And based on the deals I had done, that was what I was projected to do. Now here's the behind the scenes of that. I was funding a bunch of smaller EMDs, which means I had 25 deals that I was managing inspection periods, contracts, communications with the borrowers, communication with title, all of that stuff, not to mention all of my funds being out in all of these different places. Now, yes, I had a CRM to track all of these things, but I was just one human being. It was a lot, right? And so what happened was, turns out some of those borrowers were bad. I dropped the ball because I wasn't communicating with everybody. The contracts that I were using at the time were garbage. They were used by people that were not actually doing funding. And so in a matter of weeks, it went from I have reached this ultimate goal of deals, which is a stupid goal, by the way. It's a great goal to try and get your first deal. Don't let me discourage you from that. But to try and measure your success or goals based on deals instead of revenue is illogical. And I'll tell you exactly why. Because as I was doing that, funding all of these smaller deals and everything fell apart, I ended up losing tens of thousands of dollars on those deals. Terrible. Still dealing with some of that downfall a year and a half later, right? All of that happened. And then I realized something. How dumb of me to not utilize leverage in a leverage-driven business. Now, here's what I mean. If you have a business where you make $500 every time you perform some sort of a service, right? Let's say it costs $500 to get your pool cleaned, right? Or somebody pays you $500 to clean a pool. Well, if you want to scale that business, then you would have to clean 100 pools to get 100 times that amount of money, right? But in transactional funding, it's percentage based. If I'd fund your double close today and it's a $100,000 double close and I charge 1.5% or 1.5%, then that means I'll make $1,500. If you have $1 million deal and I fund that and I make 1.5%, then that means I make $15,000, from $1,500 to $15,000. Now, did I do anything different? No, exact same amount of effort. The only difference was the amount of money, but because I'm charging a percentage, I get 10x leverage with the same amount of time. I was deep diving on these tiny deals, trying to make myself feel all successful because I was doing a whole bunch of deals. If I was going to restart this business today, I would do what I do now, which is hyper focusing on the highest leverage activities. Now, does that mean you don't do any small deals? No. If you're getting started, smaller deals are a great way to learn. It's a great way to kind of dip your toe in the sand. However, you should not prioritize smaller deals. That should be something that if it happens, you use it as a learning experience. But you could go do 100 small deals or one big deal and get the same amount for 100 times less effort. And that, every day when I think about that, it blows my mind. Percentage-based businesses are insane. And if I had to restart, I would focus so much more time and energy on that leverage. And so that was one of the biggest, probably one of the biggest possible changes that I could make and that you can make coming into this business, is that if you just need to do small deals to feel like you're doing something, great, scratch that itch. Get it done. But that's not what's going to get you to the level of financial freedom, quitting your job, scaling a business, because I'm doing that right now. And I can tell you what's changing that is not increasing volume alone. It's increasing the amount of profit you're making on deals, right? As a percentage, and increasing the size of the deals you do. If I could just do 3 $10 million deals a month and net myself what you know, $500,000 or whatever that would be on funding, sign me up. Like, that sounds fantastic. And I fully believe that that's possible in the next few years for me. So you can watch me do that, and you can either build a business in the same way, or you can continue watching while you're doing smaller things. But if you want to grow faster and build a more successful business, you have to allow yourself to move a little bit slower at first to then gain that upper hand and gain the leverage. So in the past 2 years, those are some of the biggest things that I've learned about my business. You can apply all of that stuff right now. But the last thing I want to talk about is what has actually changed in my business now. What does it look like on a day-to-day? If you could just skip all those mistakes and just do what I'm doing now, which, by the way, I'm not saying everything I do is perfect, by no means. However, it does make a good amount of money, and it is very scalable at the time being. So take that for what it is. What am I doing now? Well, first of all, like I said, I'm avoiding the smaller deals. I actually don't accept smaller deals anymore. The second thing is that when I find a borrower who is either, take note of this, either doing bigger deals, number one, number two, knows people who's doing bigger deals, or number three, the sleeper has aspirations of doing bigger deals, I am doubling down on those people. I'm getting on calls with them. I'm giving them access to any resources that I have to help them grow their business. Whatever I can do, I want to form a lasting relationship with those people, because that means as they scale and I scale at the same time, it's a win-win, and win-win relationships seem to go a whole lot further. And so that's the first thing that I'm doing, is doubling down on that. Now, after I've doubled down on that, it's okay, how now do I increase the volume of these deals? And a lot of it is what I just talked about. If you watch this YouTube channel, or you go on my social media, whatever it may be, I talk more about whatever deals I think are going to benefit my business and other people the most. And usually that means higher leverage. Right now, that's seller carrybacks. I call it the stack method. It's going out, helping people fund deals where the seller is then gonna actually cover the down payment, and they usually profit on the deal. It's very popular right now because the market is a little bit down for regular purchasing because of mortgage rates and all of that stuff. And so it's the hot topic. And if it's the hot topic, you darn well better believe that I'm gonna jump on top of it. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm first of all doubling down on the people that I'm finding, the people I'm connecting with, and the people that I already work with. And then second of all, I'm pushing to increase my volume by, and this is a key for all of you guys, simplifying the ability for people to work with me, right? If somebody to work with me had to fill out a 50-page essay about why they wanted to work with me, I probably wouldn't get to work with anybody. Now, if on the other hand, in order for somebody to work with me, they just had to fill out a form with their first and last name and their phone number, that's also not going to be very effective, because now there's going to be so many people, but none of them are actually going to need the right kind of funding. They're not going to be great partners. They're not going to be experienced, skilled, all of that stuff. And so if I'm looking at the top of the funnel and then moving to the bottom of a funnel where nobody can get in, I have to find that balance. And so when I'm looking to increase my volume, I'm simply looking to simplify things. What can make the process easier to communicate with me? What can make it clearer for people to know how to work with me? How much more proof can I give them? And that's things like building out better automations so that people stay updated, creating things so that they know what step in the process we are in, automating our contracts, automating our processes so that there isn't as many hiccups, providing lenders so that they don't have to worry about it, right? Seemingly little things that I'm working on right now to continue chipping away at that idea of building something where more people can come in with less friction and work with me. And if I can increase that volume while also increasing my leverage and the size of my deals, that's going to push me on my current goal of hitting $1 million a month in this business. So that's exactly what I'm working towards, is building deals and systems out that can do exactly that. And if you're watching this right now, I would encourage you to do the same thing, because nothing that I do now is something that requires me to personally have more money or have more skills or experience or any of that stuff. It's just me implementing the lessons that I've learned, right? That's it. And so if you're watching this and you're ready to get started, I want to give you the most clear and simple instructions I know how to, and speak to you as if you were myself 2 years ago. Use smaller deals to gain credibility and learn important lessons with less risk. Then increase your leverage by focusing on the people that are scaling their business, because if they're scaling their business in a way that involves money, you can scale your business next to them. And if you do that and you increase your leverage on deals, right? And you can think through this too. Who's doing bigger deals? Commercial people, apartment building people, land deal people, just not the people that are buying those, $20,000 houses for Section 8 in Ohio. Like, they're probably not your primary audience, right? But if you go for people that are going bigger and you can go big with them, it will change everything about everything. And I know how to give you the simplest first step. That's why I've created this video, so that you can skip the crap and get to the good stuff. So if you're somebody that wants to get into transactional funding and get started, you can join my free group on School. It's the first link in the description here. I go live in there, helping answer your questions and teach you. I've got trainings in there. I've got resources, AI stuff. It's all free in there. It's the first link down there, and you'll get exposed to what other people are already doing that works. And then you can also get that training and get on live calls and get answers to questions, and also just see what people are doing, which is very, very helpful. And so there's a couple things here. You can end this video and you can go back to whatever it is that you were doing that didn't work. That's totally up to you. Or you can join that group for free, get started, and actually make the decision, you know what? I'm gonna skip the BS, all the garbage that I went through, skip that stuff, and just start zoning in on the important stuff. And you're gonna get stuck, and you're gonna have questions along the way, and that's totally fine. That's what community is for. That's what this channel is for. My objective is to share with you all of the things I wish I knew. And so I hope that this gives you some clarity on the things that you can probably toss out the window and some things that you can focus. And if you wanna go further down that rabbit hole, YouTube thinks that you would like this next video on the screen here, that would be a good place to start. But otherwise, go take action, skip the mistakes, and let's build a business that's profitable from day one.